Does anyone else feel like we're being set up? Because the level of brutality in this war is almost unfathomable. And at this point, with them continuing the agenda, despite being unable to, one, control the narrative, or two, hear anything else but ceasefire for the last 71 days, including from the international everybody, to three, now trying to convince his own people that the war must go on when they're practically calling for his head. So that was looking sus to me, and it made me want to look in what else they're doing, because like we know how they are with distractions. And bruh, like we know about the migrants, but I don't think we know about the migrants. So here's the crazy crap they're up to while we are being grief-stricken and devastated by Gaza. Thanks to somebody's current border policies, military-aged men are pouring into the country at an alarming rate by trainload, truckload, and busload. Many think this is for voting manipulation, but for entertainment purposes only, it sounds a lot like a United Nations martial law army. Because who did we expect to make up that army, since our military are our friends and family, especially when the military is the one letting them in? And then this guy says this recently.
Her bill says that if you're an undocumented person in this country and you can pass the physical and the required test, background test, the like, you can serve in our military, and if you do it honorably, we will make you citizens.
Furthermore, new numbers were released, and hundreds of billions of dollars are annually being poured into our migrant crisis.
The price tag per year is $451 billion. That is both for the housing and care of the asylum seekers.
Again, this does not include any of the billions of dollars being rained down on Gaza right now, or last month's request of $105 billion, besides the $200 million he ignored everyone and sent. And not to mention the American people are broke right now, as homelessness jumps 12% to an all-time high. But despite the hundreds of billions going towards this migrant crisis, a lot of these guys are actually living in pretty impoverished conditions, including over 1,000 migrants living in the police stations in New York.
District Police Station in Pullman, telling migrants staying in their lobby to leave.
And many out on the streets. And guys, remember that it's winter. Like, New York alone is taking in over 115,000 migrants in the last year, and the mayor has practically been begging for federal assistance, but was sorely rejected and even resorted to saying this to the people of New York.
And as I left Washington, D.C., I did not leave with optimism. I left with the cold reality that help is not on the way in the immediate future. It is going to be, at this moment, it's going to be up to New Yorkers and this administration to continue to navigate this challenge that we're facing.
And he's not alone. Other major cities are consistently announcing that they've reached their limits. This is what's happening in Chicago.
Chicago is approaching a breaking point. Tents full of desperate migrants lining Chicago's iconic Lakeshore Drive.
A total of 18,000 migrants have been bussed in from the southern border to Chicago. And as you can see here, it seems like they're just feeding them into the nearest sanctuary city. We've heard them say that the migrants are going to Colorado, Baltimore, Columbus, Ohio. They're just being shuffled in, and the state they're going to just has to deal with it. And thus far, just for the state of Illinois, that's $330 million in relief that's been shelled out over this. And they're still having to beg the federal government for help. However, things are even more dire down at the border, where from December 3rd through the 7th, over 35,000 migrants crossed during that 4-day period. Arizona has seen up to 12,000 migrants in a single day for multiple days. Texas borders are being overwhelmed near Eagle Pass over here and Mission over here, and New Mexico is so overrun that Texas actually put up a border against them too. But it's the trippiest thing in California, where long lines of Chinamen cross the Mexican border right here in Jacumba Hot Springs, which now begs the question, because now I have questions. Like, what exactly are we advertising in other countries? And also, who is getting them into our neighboring countries so they can further sneak in? Like, why not bring them all the way in? I have questions. Anyways, to paint the picture, over 470,000 Venezuelan migrants, that's like 500,000 Venezuelans, will be granted legal status. And that's just one of the over 130 countries that we've accepted people from thus far. We've had over 2.5 million crossover in 2023 alone. And since this is Google, it's probably way more than that. And guys, like, that's a sizable army. And they are military aged. And just when you think it can get any worse, this happened this past Friday. A class was sworn in as officers of the first migrant police force in California. Rights are being granted that vary from state to state. For instance, Minnesota no longer requires citizenship to get a driver's license. New Mexico is allowing them to become lawyers. And now in California, apparently they can also become officers. In other words, we are so screwed. On a positive note, Florida wasn't having any of that and have made stricter laws, even going so far as to reject certain state licenses, smart, and require hospitals to check patient immigration statuses. Like, what a crazy world we live in, guys.